Today, I wanted to introduce you to someone, as usual, special. Her name is Justyna. You can see her on the other screen. Justyna Redestowicz, welcome and good morning to you.
Yeah, good morning. It's good to be here for the first time.
Yes, so we're going to be talking about your work and what you do at Polaron. You've been part of the team for around 3 months now.
Yeah.
Can you tell us what your role involves and what happens in your world every day?
Okay, sure. So I'm case coordinator. So I mainly take care of our clients, our grant clients. So there are meetings, but there is also a lot of work in the background, like document checking and research. So all of that is on me and on our friends in Poland. And I'm also a project manager, let's say, and we are developing this platform, a learning platform that will help our clients to progress better in their grant journey.
So tell us firstly, what is kind of Polish citizenship? What is that? Because maybe some people that are watching us don't even know.
Sure. So some people that, well, they grandparents may have left Poland before 1920, and then they are not, they can't get Polish citizenship via ancestry. So in that case, we can go for grant of citizenship, which is granted by Polish president, and he has the power to grant Polish citizenship to anyone that gives enough reason to do that. So what we are doing here, we try to develop those connections with Poland, write letters of recommendations, and gather all of the documents that we need to, that are required by Polish government to lodge the case, lodge the application. And mainly that's how it goes.
And it's a great journey, and it's a at times difficult journey or a challenging journey. Let's put it that way for a lot of people, because it involves things like learning of the language and you know, really considering your identity, which is a pretty challenging thing to think about, because you know we don't walk around and think, who am I? But for the clients that we work with, and you and I work closely together, a lot of the time it's about asking those difficult questions and trying to develop this narrative explaining you know, who you are as a person. And that journey can be a challenge on a sort of on a level of emotions, right? So
Right.
you work with clients where those kinds of things are discussed on top of documenting everything, right?
Sure. So for every client, it's a little bit different journey, but each one of them have some Polish ancestors. So we try to build on that. So they have some stories, they have some traditions that they may not even know that are Polish. And we're just celebrated in their family, and they just think it's normal. And actually, it turns out those traditions are Polish. So we try to dig, let's say, a little bit in the past and in the current traditions, and see how many of them are Polish, and we try to help them to feel Polish as well, and not to think about Polish as them. We want to think about Polish as we.
That's right, and I think the journey you're talking about will be different for everyone. But what we try and facilitate for a lot of our clients is, you know, accessing information, accessing resources, helping them develop that connection. Because for a lot of people whose ancestors left more than 100 years ago, basically what happened is that whether they immigrated to America, Canada, Australia, South Africa, or Argentina, you know, people just kind of got on with lives. They basically kept some traditions, but you know, given the passage of time, some things may have changed. So we try and reconnect them with their traditions, with the heritage. We also do quite a bit of research. So we do work with our team in Poland, specifically Dorota. Tell us what she does for us. What's her job?
She searches for the documents basing on what client gives us at the beginning. So that may be names, that may be some dates. And she searches for any Polish documents or Ukrainian or Belarusian, because part of Polish, part of Belarus and Ukraine were Polish ones. So she is looking for those documents and for anything that can help us in this process. So that may be marriage or birth certificates, that may be even some documents from the church. In some cases, these are criminal records, for example, or cases in the court. So any documents that are Polish, even if they are not in favor of their ancestors, are just gold.
Right, because they paint a story, and you know, like with every family, it kind of become kind of voyeurs of the big brother, and we try and help people piece it all together. But of course, not all of it is, you know, roses and rainbows. It's not about that. So sometimes we do discover things that are, you know, challenging from that point of view, and a lot of stories of hardship and trauma, and you know, the need to integrate in a society that was a little bit foreign, I guess, because a lot of people didn't immigrate through choice. It was forced upon them for all kinds of reasons, whether it's wars or poverty. But the constant connection is that yearning for Poland and that desire for Poland. And I think that's really the key to success, because I think we call this session 5, what did we call it? Remind me, 5, something or other. But that's definitely one of them, right? That you need to discover through those family connections and through your family heritage what the link is and what you feel about it. It's about how you feel inside, yeah?
Yeah, and for a lot of people, it's also a way to get to know the ancestors better. For example, they knew them as the child, and they know them as grandma or grandpa, but for example, they didn't know what they did in Poland and how did their life go, because they never asked about it, or their ancestors weren't really eager to talk about it, because it were such a hard times in Poland then. So it's also a way for those people to get to know their family history better as well. Oh, if I think you are on mute.
Yeah, I've unmuted myself. Okay. So those connections we do develop through things like food, through language, through history, but also through personal and professional connections. But tell us, what are the 5 steps of to get your citizenship through grant?
Well, so I think there are some things that need to be done. First of all, that research that we talked about, and second thing is discovering your identity, as we talked, and learning the language. That's already 3 things. We also need to, of course, gather all of the documents. That's the other thing. And well, deepen the knowledge about Poland to feel more connected. So I think that's the most important things that everybody needs to do to just feel Polish and get Polish citizenship, because it's like it does go together. If you don't feel Polish, there is a high probability that you won't get a Polish citizenship.
Right, and I think it's also fair to say that connection is very different for every single person that we work with, because whether they're interested in music or cooking or whatever it is, what our job is to find you things that are that you can be passionate about, and you can expand on your knowledge, whether it's historical or geography or whatever it is, in a way that's really genuine and of interest to you, because it's not like going through the motions and you know, ticking your boxes. It's a lot more than that, although I think a lot of your work is actually making sure that all the boxes are ticked.
Yes.
So stuff like, tell us about the box ticking that you do behind the scenes. It's a massive job. Like, if people don't know, you know, to make sure that all the documents are you know, safe, prepared, that's quite a big job. So maybe if you could tell us about that a bit.
Sure. So there are a lot of documents that we need to gather, and to start the process, for example, in Poland, we need letters of authority that gives us authority to act on the people's behalf in Poland. And also we need to register their marriage, birth, and other civil records in Poland. So they will get a Polish birth certificate. It's required by Polish government to process the application. And also we do the folder with all of the documents that are needed. So we gather all of the documents, not only about the Polish ancestry, but also about the career, about the education, about traveling to Poland, about any other connections to Poland. We need to also fill out pretty long application form, which is, well, I think like 13 or 15 pages long, and it's a little bit detailed. So there are a lot of things going in the background, and also there are things that our clients need to do, such as letters of recommendation or motivational narrative, that are not really required by the Polish government. It's not like you have to do this, but it really helps to show them in a good light. So we also encourage them to do it as well. We also keep in touch with our Polish teachers, of course. So there are a lot of things going in the background, and meeting with our clients is just a tiny part of what they see. And most of the work is, well, out of their sight.
Yeah, and I think you're a bit of an unsung hero, if I can put it that way, where, you know, the reason that we don't know about this is because it works so well, and people don't need to know. But there are, you know, just speaking from experience, things like, you know, sometimes we get a birth certificate that we need to register in Poland that doesn't have the right information. And then we have to think really creatively about how to make it happen. So a lot of what you do is really behind the scenes, just making sure that the journey is very smooth and people don't get to see the you know, the paddling. It's like a duck, you know, it travels smooth across water, but in the meantime there's a lot of movement and hard work behind the scenes. Yeah,
right. There are once again, it really depends on the client and on the documents, because some states in the United States, they don't really give the full birth or marriage certificates. So even though in American way of thinking it's full, but in Polish it's not. So those documents really differ from country to country and state to state. And we really need to figure out a way to make it all happen. So yeah, it's a little bit different for every client.
and you work across different jurisdictions as well. So if you, you know, for those of you that are listening from America, you have 50 states, and every state's got different regulations. Every document's different, whether it's a birth or marriage certificate or an apostille. So it's like a real maze of information that we have to sift through. But at the end of the day, what we're working towards is ensuring that your documents, when they do get to Poland, they get, you know, properly registered. And sometimes there are kind of challenges along the way. But let's get back to the matter at hand. So the 5 steps of getting your Polish citizenship through grant. So this is what I tell people when I get to speak to a lot of people that are considering going through this process. So the first step is think about it really, 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 really hard before you even consider whether this is for you, because it is quite a lot of work. So regardless of the support that you can give to people, there's a component there of their own input, and we don't go for the interview, they do. We're not going to be assessed, they will. So how do we, you know, that first step, when people decide, okay, yeah, I'm gonna do it, how do we support people in that first step?
Well, first of all, they of course need to know that a lot of work will need to be done by them. But what we do at first is trying to get the research started. So we don't try to really give them so much of paperwork at the beginning. We can do that later. And at the beginning, we really tried to discover those roots and those traditions and anything that can connect them to Poland. Because without it, we can't really go to the next step. So I think that's the most important thing at the beginning.
And one of the tricks, or I don't know if you can call it a trick, but one of the things I do is encourage people to write an essay, a story about somebody that's really significant in their life. So whether it's their grandmother or, you know, sometimes those people are no longer around and all they have is photos. But I think when you try and formulate who you are as a person and how you are connected to something that's a little bit abstract, I think one of the good ways of doing that is to write an essay about somebody that's significant, that's influential. And I've been getting like really beautiful stories with photos and, you know, just really amazing stuff. It's very touching, it's very endearing, but also really useful for us so that that narrative can be shown to the Polish bureaucrat, because you know, at the end of the day, it is a bureaucratic process where you have to have forms and documents, whatever. But there's a human aspect to it, which is something that I actually enjoyed the most about this work. What about you? What is it that you like about this this job?
I'm really excited about the people's stories, and I'm really eager to help them to get what they want. So if they are excited, and mostly they are excited, let's say, so I'm excited as well. And also discovering all of those mazes of traditions, ancestry is also fascinating for me as well.
And one of the steps, which is probably, I don't know, you know, I don't know if you can compare them, which one's the most important or less important or whatever, but one of the steps is learning the language. And I find, I don't know about you, but I find that it's often the biggest challenge, especially at the beginning, because for an English speaker, learning Polish is pretty tough because it's, you know, it's a language that, that is really quite different. How do we support people in learning of the language?
Yeah, it's the most, well, most of people are scared about Polish language, right? Because it's really hard. It's like everywhere on the internet, and everybody can tell you that Polish is the hardest language to learn in the whole universe. So for most people, it actually could be if they think that way. So what we are doing, we are giving free lessons for our clients. So we have group lessons where they can, well, just get involved in some Polish subjects. We have 2 lessons every week with our Polish teachers, but we also give them the individual lessons. And provided by the teachers that are specialized in teaching Polish language as the second language. And we try to make it conversational, so they don't really, because grammar in Polish language is really hard to learn. So we don't really want to focus on grammar, because even if people do some grammar mistakes, it doesn't really matter. The most important thing for them is just to try to speak Polish and get a little bit more confident in it. So we try to make it a little bit more conversational than grammar.
And it's about communication, isn't it? And I think for a lot of our clients, they have heard Polish, or, you know, their ancestors spoke it at home or whatever it is. So it's about building that confidence and not being anxious about speaking, because I think that also some people have it. And, you know, if all you hear, oh my God, this language is so difficult, of course you're not going to want to try it. But at the end of the day, we've had some really amazing success stories of people that really embraced it. And yes, it's hard. Yes, it's a lot of work, but at the end of the day, language is something that really connects you with your heritage, I think. And, you know, the minute you can make Polish jokes in Polish, that's a sign of success, I think, definitely. I think we've got quite a few questions, Justyna, so thank you for that summary. And I think towards the end, we'll go through the 5 steps, but one of them is, you know, think hard, learn the language, and the other 3 we'll cover at the end. But Andrea, can I ask you if we have any questions?
Yes, we do have a lot of questions here. So the first one, is this the grant of Polish citizenship the same as asking for the president's office?
It is. So it's a petition, or it's an application that's completely discretionary. You ask to be made a Polish citizen. So rather than applying to have it confirmed, so a lot of people can go through what's called the descent or the law of soil avenue. But most people, especially Americans, cannot, because their family left either too early or something happened to affect their eligibility. So it is applying through the Polish consulate to the President of Poland to be granted or given citizenship.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful, thank you. Next question. My family is from a burned, destroyed town in Wołyn. Doesn't seem to be hope for me. So that's a question, kind of a comment, if you would like to comment on that.
I might take that one, Justyna, as well. So Volhynia,
Sure.
which is the region that the person's asking about, used to be Poland in the interwar period and not much earlier as well. And it did go through a number of wars and, you know, very, very challenging times. There's actually a really good film that was made not long ago. It's pretty gory, so if you have nerves of steel, watch it, but it'll give you a really good idea of what happened. And it is also true that some records were destroyed. On the other hand, some records exist and they're very well preserved. I think the challenge for any areas that are no longer Poland is dealing with, you know, governments of Ukraine or Belarus, where essentially it's quite hard to get the records from them rather than not existing. So first of all, it takes a long time. Secondly, you know, depending on which archives or who you get there, it may be a challenge to get the records. But generally speaking, that they are there. It just depends what area, and if the town that this person's family comes from is completely destroyed, it doesn't mean that the records may not be elsewhere. So it's really important to have a look at what else might be available, because if there are records that are more than 100 years old, they may be elsewhere than that village. So they may have been transferred even to Poland. So there was an exchange between Poland and former USSR in 1960s. So some records, you know, were taken to Poland, others are still in Volhynia, and it just really depends on the religion. So there's so many considerations, but generally speaking, until you try and until you've given it a go, you won't know what's there. And we often are surprised with the quality and the level of information that's available.
Thank you, Eva. Could you guys tell us a bit how the interview at the Polish consulate looks like?
Okay,
Did you want to take that one?
Yeah, sure. It really depends also on the consulate, but usually it's just a friendly chit chat with consul. So we prepare this really, really thick folder about your family, and the consul will look through it. And what they need to do, what they have to do, is just make sure that every document is translated, stamped, that everything is all right there. And in the meantime, they will also ask about the family, about the traditions that were in your house, what have you prepared, and what the letters are. For example, those letters of recommendation, who wrote it for you. So mainly they ask the questions about the folder. That is the part of why we prepare it, because they just focus on it. And that is also a way for us to prepare for the interview as well.
So one of the things that the consulate does, or the consular staff member does during the interview or after the interview, they write minutes from it, and then they provide what's called an endorsement, or they provide an opinion about your suitability. And the Polish government relies on that a lot, because the consul will have local knowledge about, you know, organizations you're member of, and you know, any other things that are local to your community. So that consular appointment is really quite important to do well at. But we do practice, and we do role plays, and we actually always over prepare. So, and we find that when people do go for the interview, they walk away with a sense of real accomplishment, because we prepare people so well for it, so that it, you know, it's a cinch. There's no issue. they go right through it. But they, you know, everybody always stresses about interviews because it's a big thing. Yeah.
Thank you, guys. Next question is about the timeline. So once I have filed my application through the Polish consulate, how long does it take to get an outcome or reply from them?
It can take from 12 up to even 24 months. So it's quite a long process for the Polish government. And I can explain why. First of all, it goes to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and they need to check all of your whether you were politically involved somewhere. They need to check the organizations, Polish organizations that you joined. So they check every aspect of your application. And of course, they need to check again the documents. So it goes from the office to office. And every office have 14 days to respond. So it can take quite a long time just sitting in the office. That's why it takes so much time, I think.
Yeah, and it varies. Like we've noticed things improving in terms of the timelines. On the other hand, there are more and more and more applications from people being filed. So it does go through the process of also international police checks. There's quite a lot of compliance they do. But on average, you are looking between 12 and 24 months.
Thank you. How do I know if I'm eligible of if the grant of Polish citizenship is a right option for me?
You don't. That's my there's no recipe for it. There is no assurance. There's no you know, particular benchmark, if you know what I mean. So there's no exam. It's really honestly about you wanting to be Polish, and what that means to you, I don't know. What we can do for you is support you through the journey. At the end of the day, you'll be assessed, and you will either get it or not. And it's, you know, it doesn't sound like a great adventure, but it actually is. Most people, all the people that we work with, embark on this journey with a lot of hesitation and a lot of trepidation, I would even say. We've never had a rejection, but it's always sort of in the backs of our mind. So the only thing you can do is prepare the application to the best of your ability, over prepare, you know, add everything you can into it to showcase your, you know, why are you a good candidate, and be sincerely and genuinely engaged and want this. There's no other way to describe it for me, I don't think.
Last question, guys. It looks like a very long process. How do I keep up my motivation going throughout 1 year or 2 years of this process?
Well, that's where Justyna comes in. She's very good at motivating, let me tell you.
Yeah, so we try to meet with our clients every 2 weeks, so we keep their motivation up, and it's our way to do it. And of course, there are a lot of resources, there are a lot of websites, there are a lot of, there are those Polish lessons. So we are keeping in touch with them all of the time during all of the process. And we basically guide you through the process, right? So it's on us for you not to lose the motivation.
And that's something we're pretty good at. And I think, you know, it's like a coaching program, I guess, you know, and I don't want to call myself anti-Eva, but it's a little bit like that. It's a little bit of, you know, hand-holding and just really understanding your life plans, your circumstances. So, you know, a lot of people we work with have children and they're very busy careers. But I think what we do by meeting with people regularly like this on Zoom every 2 weeks, responding to every single email, to every single query, and having a team behind, actually, because Justyna's the face of it and I sort of pop in and out. But there are a number of people that work on each application, really. And we're just in the process of recruiting because this has grown so incredibly much in the last few months. So that, you know, you can have that, not just motivation, but you can be sure that you're doing the right thing. we motivate you by providing you with information that closes those gaps that Justyna spoke about, you know, kind of empowers you as well, and we help you connect with your identity. But you know, any networks that you join are those that are, you know, of passion to you, I guess is the way to put it already. And we try and connect you to your heritage through language, food, all kinds of things that we've got up our sleeves. But it is an individual journey for everybody that works with us.
Thank you, guys. There's no more questions at the moment.
All right, so we're going to have to go back to the 5 steps, Justyna. So the first one is think about it. Think about it hard. What's the second step?
Well, I think the second step I mentioned was the Polish language. So at least that basic level of Polish language, and we of course help with that as well. And as I said, you don't really have to be an expert in Polish language. You just need to know basic phrases and have that confidence of speaking Polish, and just a little bit, again, just a little bit. Right, and the next thing is going on our side, because it's research, which is, well, very important, but it's if you don't have any documents on your family, we can lodge the application as well. So it's really helpful to have those documents, to have any Polish documents of your ancestors, but it's not really required, because it's not, it's grant of citizenship. It's not the citizenship by ancestry. So confirmation of citizenship. And the other things are connections to Poland. So either through your ancestors, joining organizations, getting to know the Polish traditions, so closing this gap of knowledge about Poland. And the last thing, and I think the most boring thing for most of people, is documents. So all of the documents that we have to prepare and that are required by Polish government or not.
But luckily, for all the steps, and especially the 5th one, we have you. So on that note, I wanted to thank you for being part of it and explaining, well, first of all, how you work, what you do, and how you work with clients. If anyone has any questions, you can contact Justyna. You can contact me. Our contact details are on the website, or you can drop us an email or a message through Facebook, whatever works for you. But I think we've given quite a wide-ranging, you know, summary of what happens. That journey is different for everybody, but at the end of the day, what you want is Polish citizenship that's very meaningful, I guess a lot more meaningful than for people that just go through the motions of getting confirmation of citizenship, because this, as you heard, requires a lot more work, a lot more engagement, and a lot more connection with your identity and that feeling of being Polish, which is different for everybody. So Justyna, thank you for dedicating your morning to us. If anyone has any questions, feel free to reach out. Yes. And have a great afternoon.
Yeah.
Over to you just for the last few words. Okay.
Oh yeah, it was good to be here. And if you, as Eva said, if you have any questions, I'm really happy to answer any of them.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And thank you, Andrea, as always, for organizing us and working on us on the session with us.